and this is because of a lot of political factors, social factors, and financial factors, is that we're not able to efficiently plan for the issues that we're seeing.
Especially with all of these newer, like, federal legislation. I think that's what you're talking about. Like, there's all this new federal legislation. You know, and people, you know, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you know, yes, it's adding disruption and all of that, but with that disruption, the facilities are, and especially the ones that are already at a tight EBITDA or tight budget, it's harder for them to kind of plan ahead. And that's
because they're like, when you're, it's like trying to tell a family who's living paycheck to paycheck to save $500 a month. They're like, listen, I'm trying to get $20 in the bank. And you trying to tell me to save $500. And so there's a lot of hospitals that are kind of like paycheck to paycheck, if you kind of so to speak. And so with that, I'm trying to stay open for our community. To be honest with you, I'm currently looking for investors, donors, to contribute to help us stay open. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the smaller communities and even inner city communities where you're receiving a lot of these, you know, Medicare, Medicaid payers, that volume of patients, you know, you're trying to figure out how can we maybe make reductions in our business model so we can stay open to service our patients. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because I'm cutting certain services that the community also needs. But I also, if I don't cut these services, I can't stay open. And so it's like, I got to look at the gretter good here. And then at the same time, I'm trying to still employ all of my employees. And so I'm trying to avoid rifts. I'm trying to avoid layoffs. I'm trying to avoid all these different things that are catastrophic to the community. And so I'm making decisions that are potentially going to affect my employees. I'm making decisions that's going to affect my community. And so it's tough. You know, you're in a room and you got dollars and cents. And dollars and cents isn't like imaginary. It doesn't move. Math, one of the things about math is pretty absolute.
It's absolute.
2 plus
Can't lie on math.
2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. Now you can. Now some people might try to say it ain't 4, but I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell the audience that 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4.
Always going to be 4.
And so when you're in the war room, you know, your financial war room, and you're strategically planning for the future. You know, because hospitals, we don't just plan for like the next year.
You think much further
as an organization, you have to plan minimum 5-10 years out to be able to plan efficiently for the community, because you're running a $1 billion organization. You know, and so hundreds of millions of dollars is going into this business. You know, every quarter, sometimes every month, and you're trying to meet the budget. Your goal is to meet the budget so you can maintain your credit rating. And so, because if your volumes decrease, right, then your shareholders, your banks are going to say, okay, well, I don't know if you have the same credit because your volumes have decreased. So I want to invest in you. I want to give you the line of credit for this next fiscal year. But at the same time, your volumes decreased.
I'm looking at those books.
I'm looking at the trend. You decreased by 3% last year, 6% this year. You know, it starts.
Why would I give you money to buy this new MRI?
And so when you plan when you're planning for your next budget, which is your financial aspect, you're also planning for the number of patients you're going to see too. So it's a kind of a twofold thing. I'm not just planning for dollars and cents. I'm also planning on how many patients am I going to see on a month-to-month basis. And that patient volume is really going to show my output of what I should be able to bring in.
And so just to tie into some of the patients, so that's why if you've been, and I talk about this in a book where, you know, it does come down to the dollars and cents, where so many times when people go to the doctor's office, they almost feel like they're being rushed. Like they almost feel like cattle, you know, they're just a number. And part of that is that they're trying to, and one of the the pink elephant in the room is that also reimbursements have been getting lower and lower as well, because I've seen that with my healthcare facility as well. So if, just as he said, the costs are going up, but the reimbursement, so the clinical track, so the clinical side, that is the revenue producing side, they they are getting less and less to provide the same care.
Yeah.
So with that said, how do they make up for that? Now instead of seeing 2 people per hour, we've got to see 5 people per hour, or whatever it's going to be, or per time slot, or whatever it's going to be. So that's why in the book I try to talk about like a more utopian healthcare system where you go in and the doctors at least spend some time to find out what's going on. You learn something about your healthcare. Being that you've seen the strengths and the weaknesses of the healthcare system, if you could redesign like what if you could redesign your own hospital, you and I spoke about that too, because I had a little dream that I told him about. But if you could redesign like your own hospital, right? Now you are CEO, Karanja Smith. What would you do? Because I think you've seen the basement, right?
Yeah.
But you've also seen the community challenges and the needs as well. And one thing I want to throw out there is that the reimbursements that I spoke about that are getting less and less. One thing that I spoke to you about on the phone is that the doctors, sometimes you have to look at where the money is going. Most of the money right now, it's in the surgeries, it's in the pain management, it's in the costly medication and all of that. The doctors that are, I think, that are, getting people off of blood pressure medication, getting people, feeling much, much better, and actually now their diabetes is almost, non-existent. There are doctors that are doing things like that, but they're not the ones getting the highest reimbursement. So, there's also like this incentive built in, and that's why we talk about a broken healthcare system. Because if it's a for-profit system and the profit is in just continuing to profit off of the sickness or the hurting or the whatever of people, then where is the incentive? Right? Where is the incentive to give to the doctors that do want to see changes and the doctors that do want to change lives? Because that's the hurdle that I've been running into. So that's why within at MSI, I've just been reimagining what healthcare looks like. And that's why we are offering things like, whether it's regenerative medicine, we're doing chiropractic, we're doing newer modalities, not because insurance covers it, but because they work. And I could save somebody from a knee surgery or from a untimely back surgery or things of that nature. So because of that, that's what I'm doing. But what would you see as, how would you redesign a hospital or a healthcare system? Like, what does it look like to you?
Thank you. This is a great question, and actually my answer's been changing as you've been just talking in my head. And in the world today, right? People get paid for solutions.
People get paid for solutions.
People get paid for solutions.
Okay, I respect that.
Some people provide those solutions with their hands. Some people provide those solutions with their brain. And some is a combination of the two, right? And so one of the things that I would change in our healthcare market, a lot of times we're seeing a lot of repeat cases.
Wow.
And so not just, and when I say healthcare, I'm talking about healthcare in general as a country, not just one particular hospital, right? And so we're seeing a lot of repeat of same cancer diagnosis among the same race, among the same
and
gender.
That's community health. That's what I studied. Once you see the trends with communities, you're like, okay, something's. It's not just the Johnson family. It's this whole zip code.
It's this whole zip code right there.
And that's where you look at the environmental health and all of that. Yeah, go ahead.
And so, as a healthcare market, one of the things that I would definitely provide a benefit to or a reimbursement for is to prevent these things. When you have a patient that has not come back, you're being paid for these solutions that you're providing to this community. And so it's more geared towards preventative health, but also the racial disparities, and I would sow a little bit more money into and I think we are doing that. Telemed, because some people can't get there physically. I can't access it. So how can we help those that are in those areas where they don't have the access. They don't have the internet. They don't have the internet speed, or they don't have the technological devices to hook up, so they can be able to be seen by their physician. You know what I mean? And so I think we are trending in that direction. But a lot of the healthcare that we're seeing today is based off of more people getting sick. And so that's what I call it. It's more of a sick care system. It's more of a sick care system than a healthcare system. And as an organization, our issue is to solve problems, right? And if we're seeing all of these different factors increasing, then if we're seeing an increase and we're not seeing a downtick in any area, even though there's downticks in certain areas, but overall we're seeing more people sick. There's more people sick in this country. There's more people obese in this country there's ever been. There's more people with high blood pressure than there's ever been.
And the trends are still going.
And everything is still trending in that same direction.
Nothing new
nothing new
is happening.
There's nothing new is happening.
This very conversation of reimagining healthcare, like it's imperative. It's vital that it happens right now, because the trends, they're only getting worse. And I think you said something that's very key, and that's why I think it puts within this paradigm shift, the solution can't be from the top down. Like, we can't be looking at the hospital to do that. So it has to be from the people up. It has to be more grassroots. And that's why I'm doing this, because if people get paid for the solutions, and we're still paying for the solutions that are giving us these outcomes, then I have to ask my audience, what solution are you really looking for? Right? Because if you just, and I think I really want you to talk about even your experience.
I'm going
when
to.
You went, but you have to want a better solution, right? Like, we have to want a better solution. We have to want to not to live on medication just to manage blood pressure. We have to want to live healthier. We have to want to not have food deserts in the rural and the inner city communities, right? We want to not have all of these things that are thrown at us at the first slight of an issue that's wrong, and you're already thrown the most aggressive, hey, let's have a C-section. The baby had a hiccup in the womb, let's do a C-section, right? Something's wrong, you got this pain, go see this pain management. They're going to do some injections, they're going to do all these costly interventions and all of that. Well, what about, like, what can I do, right? That maybe it doesn't cost the hospital much, but what are some of these preventative services, and how is the hospital, and how is their reimbursement for solving those solutions that actually bring better outcomes in the community? And until we get that, I feel like the healthcare system is still gonna keep rolling in that hamster wheel.
The machine's gonna keep going.
So, I did, while we're on that vein, I did want you to talk about, just your own, I think that you recently was trying to get yourself together, right? And just talk about that. And
so, personal story, about 3 months ago, I had a physical, and I had a high blood pressure reading. It was probably maybe 130 over 92. So it was like my first high blood pressure reading in my life. Like, I've never had a high blood pressure reading. It's always been 120 over 80, without fail. I don't even think about it. To that point. Like I told you, it's a Steph Curry free throw. You know what I mean? It just switched every time. Every time he shoot, it's going in. It might rattle a little bit, but it's going to go in. So sometimes it might be 121 over 80 or 120 over 82, but it's going to be in that range. So I've never thought about it. And so after it came back and it was high, I was like, that's weird. And so she even thought it was weird, but we just kept kept moving. And then they did ask me to come back and get another reading just in case. You have the white coat syndrome, so sometimes when you go into the doctor's office and get your blood pressure checked, sometimes it's high because you're nervous, because you're in the doctor's office. I typically don't have those symptoms, but they can happen. So fast forward to last weekend, we were having the Praise Fest in the park, and we have a whole lot of different activities out there for those that came out. I hope y'all had a great time.
Awesome.
We had University of Maryland out there doing blood pressure checks, diabetes checks, and so they're really checking our community, helping our community. Awesome. And so I thought to myself, you know what? let me go get my blood pressure checked.
There you go.
I said, I was supposed to come back. I didn't come back, being, a guy who I am. So, I didn't make it back to get the blood pressure checked. But you know what? I got it checked last week. So
yes.
I said, let me get it checked. So I got it checked. I went through the preliminary questions to see if you're at risk for stroke, which if you haven't done, you want to do that as well. They ask you some great questions. So it found out.
Because that's prevention.
That's prevention.
There you go.
Prevention. So found out I was low risk for a stroke. So that was good, right? So did my blood pressure check. It came back 132 over 93. I said, man, I don't know.
You're not Steph Curry no more.
No. I said, man, what's going on? And so, the clinician suggested that, I might want to go on a low dose for, hypertension and bring your blood pressure down. And first thing I said, like, in my mind, it's not an option. Like, I'm not doing that, right? Yeah. So I asked her, I said, well, what can decrease my blood pressure? How can I get this thing down in a natural way? So she said, healthy diet, cut out some fats. Beet juice is really helpful. And so she mentioned those things. And in my head, I'm like, I'm kind of doing all of those things. Yeah. I said, that's not it. So I explained to her, I said, I haven't had a high blood pressure reading in my life until 3 months ago. And so then she started thinking, now me and her are actively participating in investigating what happened. And that's where you want to be when you go see your doctor and something new has happened.
Yeah.
Your provider can't figure out alone what's happening with you unless you give them information. You have to be transparent about what you've been doing or what you haven't been doing.
That's good.
And if you're not transparent about that, they can't properly diagnose you.
That's it, sir.
They can't properly provide a preventive measure for you outside of medication because you're not being forthcoming about what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people are managing high stress jobs or environments in their homes or a relationship. And you just need to be transparent. I'm under a lot of stress. I've been under a lot of stress for the last 7 weeks. Okay, well now we have
a reason why.
We have a root cause.
Yeah.
And let's see what can we do to manage this stress. You may still have to go on medication, but it may be for a short period of time because we just need to manage this stress right here that you're facing.
There you go.
Or this diet that you have. And so since we're on the subject of diet, I asked her, I said, well, what causes your blood pressure to go up? Because mine's been pretty regular in my entire life. And she looked at me and she said, well, how's your caffeine take been? And I thought to myself, it's probably doubled in the last year.
Bingo.
And I said, dang, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But I also thought to myself, I'm being transparent about what I've been doing that hasn't been healthy for my body, but I'm also actively participating, trying to ask her or him, depending on what you have, asking the right question. What is affecting this function in my body? What drives it up? What drives it down? What do I need to do? And because I could have just said, okay, after she suggested a low dosage, I could have just scheduled an appointment with my primary.
There you go.
Told her, hey, my blood pressure's still high, and she would have put me on low dose, and then that maybe would have brought it down regular, and I've been on a low dose for God knows how long until I'm continuing to consume the same amount of caffeine. Then my blood pressure continues to go up, and now I have to continue to increase my dosage because I'm never addressing the problem.
Yeah, and when you don't address the problem, and we spoke about this, when you're not addressing the root cause of the issue, it almost gives you a green light to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't put any responsibility on the individual to change what they're doing or to look at themselves in the mirror to say, man, well, what am I doing that's actually producing this outcome, right? That's causing the doctor, based on the algorithm of, okay, they've got a high blood pressure and they're this weight, they've got this BMI, they should be on this based on what we've learned in school, and they're not wrong. like sometimes, people treat, the clinicians like that. No, they're not wrong. They're doing what they're
trained to do.
What they're trained to do. Yeah. But you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, man, what am I doing that's contributing to this issue?
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be a family health issue. It could be, even if it is hereditary and anything like that, what am I doing that's more proactive?
Yep.
Right? What is my exercise level? What is my diet intake, the caffeine intake, and all of that stuff? So are there any other, practical, because so many times people will feel stuck in that broken healthcare system.
Yeah.
So is there any other practical advice? I think you just gave a couple, like being transparent with your provider, being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice that you'd give to someone who wants to start taking ownership of their health journey?
I think that one of the biggest things you can do is knowing your family history.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't believe or don't know. So that's it.
And I'll throw in a third category. They don't want to know.
Don't want to,
which is even more dangerous.
And so So when I say you don't believe, you don't believe in hereditary diseases. So that's an issue right there, right? And so it's going to drive you to have those same things, right? It's almost like when you see those movies and shows where somebody might have had a bad mom or bad dad, and you say, "I'm never going to be like them," and before you know, you just like them.
You just like
because you're not putting anything in place to prevent you from becoming.
Wow.
And that's what happens.
Because a lot of that is subconscious.
Yeah, it's subconscious.
It's that learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. It's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yep.
That doesn't really work. I'm watching you do it. I'm watching you do it.
Yeah.
All my life. And so in the healthcare field, you need to know your family background.
That's good.
And because a lot of times you can pre-plan and get tests based off of what you know. Mm-hmm. And so, the Bible says people perish because of the lack of knowledge.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And we got to get the knowledge. We have to get the knowledge about ourselves, because when you're getting knowledge about your family, you're really getting information about yourself.
You are, yeah.
Because this is part of your makeup.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're going to incur every single disease that somebody in your family has, but it's nice to know what kind of runs in your family.
Yeah.
So if it's high cholesterol, then you might want to manage your diet a little bit better than maybe the normal person, right?
Yeah,
and so sometimes you do find yourself, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's mental. Sometimes you have to manage yourself differently to maintain what you have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it's your finances, your relationship, your health, and you'd be like, well, why am I working so hard to maintain what I have? Because of what is in you.
That's it.
There's all of us have something in us, whether it's a disease, a personality, an emotion that's not beneficial to us.
Yeah.
And it's dying to come out.
Yep.
It's absolutely that alter ego is dying to come out.
And the sooner you find it, the sooner you address it,
then the
more you can manage it.
You can manage
right?
it. And so it's like, so if I know that in my family we suffer from high blood pressure, then I know I need to do some different things to manage that. If it's high cholesterol, if it's heart failure, any of these different things, I have to make sure I'm managing these parts of my body to prevent myself from being in a situation where I have a lesser quality of life, I'm on a medication dose for the rest of my life, or I'm getting a surgery that I wouldn't otherwise need because I never took those first steps.
Wow.
And so it's really starting from that point of knowing.
That's good, man.
You have to know yourself. And sometimes and sometimes you have people that, let's say you're an individual out there, you don't know who your family is. You don't have access to your mom or dad. You are adopted. Then just get some different tests.
Yeah, there's plenty of tests out there that you can still
tests
find.
that you can still run. Talk to your primary doctor to set you up with with some blood tests that they can run that can really figure out if you are in danger of having any type of disease or anything that would be adverse to your health. So that's some things you can do if you don't know. But I think that relationship with your primary is key. And I say that just as it is. It's a relationship. A lot of times we utilize that relationship with our primary as a boss-employee relationship.
Yeah, it should be more of
it's a collaboration.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And we have holistic doctors here, and then we have doctors that practice in the traditional, right? But when I was coming up, that was one person.
Yeah.
That was one person. Mm-hmm. You know, when you go to the doctors, they should be asking you, have you been incurring any other stress? Has your diet been the same? How's your water intake? How's your physical exercise? They should be asking you these questions if something has changed in your life adversely. You know what I mean? You know, they should be asking you these questions, because if I can help you in a natural space to prevent you and sustain a quality of life, me as a doctor, that's what I'm supposed to do.
That's what
That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, you know what? We've covered so much today, and I mean, I think you've already addressed how your leadership principles have kind of carried you and what you've learned and how that's helped other people. So I think you've kind of addressed my other questions in some of your previous answers. I did want to kind of just wrap it up with, you know, if the book is Dare to Live Well, and you were actually like, Karanja, for those that don't know, we did a generational health symposium in January, which was amazing. It was amazing. Close to about 100 people that showed up just within Harford County, and he was one of the presenters. He was one of the panelists, and you know, you really spoke passionately behind just the phrase and really motivating people to make better decisions. And that's why I wanted to have this one-on-one, and I hope you've been blessed. So, Karanja, when you hear that phrase, Dare to Live Well, what does it mean to you personally, and how would you challenge our listeners, you know, to put that into practice, like starting today?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Thank you. When you say dare to live well, whenever somebody dares you to do something, it's usually something that you wouldn't normally do, right? And so it's usually something that's hard, right? And so in life, one thing that I'll start out by answering this question is you want to choose your heart. You know, choose what your heart is going to be. Because for me, it's hard for me to be on a medication the rest of my life, right? So then I'm going to choose a different heart of managing my diet, exercise, and mental and spiritual wellness, right? And so both angles are hard. You know what I mean? And so you want to choose what your heart is going to be. It's difficult for me to trust people, right? But I also see that people have a more well-balanced life when they have a community, right?
That's it.
And so am I going to continue to live in solitude, or am I going to try to get out there and start connecting with people so I can build a community for myself? So when I am going through something, I can, because I think that that's one of the pieces that I don't think we discussed today, is that your community is so important to your health.
Yeah.
To your mental health, to your spiritual health. There's going to be moments and times when you're just really struggling. You're really going through something, whether it's professionally, relationship, your personal life, your health. And that community, a lot of times, hopefully you have the right community that can hold you accountable.
Say that, yeah, that
can provide you with information.
Yeah.
And so daring to live well, what that means to me is daring to get the information about yourself, about your family, you know, so you can make the right decision. You know, dare to read up on how the tariffs are going to affect the healthcare system. You know, finding out, how do I need to plan as a family?
Yeah.
You know, how do I need to raise my kids as far as health? We've seen, I saw a segment on Today's show, I think it was last Sunday, that they're seeing way more young people are drinking less.
Okay.
And so we are seeing a health conscious society being brought up. And I think that's great, right?
Yeah.
But we also need to make sure we're incorporating all of the social aspects that's into that which is, you know, trust, integrity, accountability, and really a belongingness. You know, I think that we need to take time to hear other people's opinion. You know, we don't agree on every single thing, but that doesn't mean that because he has a yellow shirt on and I got a blue shirt on, that we can't have a conversation. We can't be nice. We can't be cordial. Yeah. And so I think,
and we can't demonize because you got, you know, teal and I got,
can't demonize,
right? and that's where it is. And I think that socially, that is a major thing, because Back in the day, you had no choice. Go outside. Yeah. Whoever's out there, that's who you're playing with, right? And you had to be. If you didn't talk, you didn't play. Yeah. Right now, it's almost like, and I see that my kids' generation. Yeah. They can choose to talk, or they can choose
who you go to game with.
They can just be like. I went to a wedding. It was a family, and it was all of the teenagers. I want to say like 16 today. It was a whole table. Yeah. Back in the day when if I was younger, back in the day we would be talking, laughing, cutting up with cousins, and this one it was a whole table of, I would say maybe from 12 or 13 to 18, and it was about 10, and like every single one of them were just like what was on the phone was more engaging than who was around them. Yeah. And it's like sometimes the people are the reason I like being open and talking to people. My wife and kids laugh at me because I'm always talking to the Uber drivers whenever we go somewhere. But sometimes it's like you never know when you're going to see that person again. Yeah. And there's so many things that you have more in common than you have that's different. Yeah. Right? So even though that Uber driver doesn't look nothing like me, he's not my age, we're not from the same country, the more I start talking to him, the more I realize we're more common. We're more and common. I think that's that's the key. Yeah. That's the key in terms of like socialization and things of that nature. Yeah, because we want to be healthy,
but we also want to be accessible. That's you know what I mean? And so sometimes as you are traveling in your life and you're having more success in your lane, you feel like you're not as accessible. And sometimes you have to be very intentional about being accessible. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so let's dare to live well. And sometimes that's choosing a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I always say, like, if you choose not to pursue after your dream, if you choose not to write the book, if you choose not to start the business, life is still going to be hard.
It's still going to be hard.
If you choose to start the business and write the book, that's hard. Yeah. One of them's going to rear you a return. Yep. And so do the hard thing that's going to give you that quality of life. Yeah. That's going to give you that relationship. That's going to give you that sense of confidence, sense of faith with God. You know what I mean? Do those things because that's what's going to rear you your return.
What solution do you want? And then visualize that and work for it. Yep. And either way, it's going to be hard. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So you might as well go for what you want. Yep. And the goal that you want rather than just let it be thrown at you. Yeah. So, man, this was, I told y'all, you know what? I didn't want to, push it too much, but, I told y'all you needed to hear this. So, listen, Karanja, thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, we covered so many things. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, being transparent with the audience. I mean, we circled back to pretty much most of the themes within the book, but, just remember, we're all connected. Yeah. The choices you make for your health today, they ripple throughout your family, throughout your community. Make sure you have the right people around you. Yeah. But you want to live right so that you're impacting your community as well, right? Don't be afraid to challenge the system, with all these current changes and future changes that we don't even know about. Yeah. That's going to happen in the healthcare system. Hospitals are closing and resources are being taken away. It's even more imperative for us to live a healthy life because the preventative way might have to be the preventative way is going to be the best way moving forward. Yeah. Whether it's being incentivized or not, you're going to see more of a return living a preventative lifestyle than living a life of dependency on whether it's surgery, medication, or whatever it's going to be, right? Yeah. So we spoke about overcoming obstacles. We spoke about overcoming a lot of different obstacles, and really just with preparation and courage, right? You can overcome it. There's nothing too hard. The more you find out about yourself and the more you find out what solutions you want, you can overcome those obstacles. Keep the end goal in mind. That's what I've always done. Yeah. Always keep the end goal in mind. And it's time to really just reimagine healthcare. Like, if you don't, if you don't like it, I hate to quote, I think it's Mahatma Gandhi, but, be the change you want to see in the world. That's why I wrote this book. Yeah. That's why I wrote down, look, this is what a real healthcare system looks like. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're not, slightly above with your health, with your blood pressure, and they're automatically trying to put you on a low dose. But it's like, man, you know what? Let's start this diet immediately. Yeah. Let's do this health questionnaire to find out. Let's make these changes. And most importantly, let's keep thinking about our generational health because we want to leave a legacy of wellness behind that's building for whether it's our children, our family, our friends, all of our colleagues, all of the people that we impact just in the lives that we live. So, listen, man, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Listen, if this conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to just take some action today. Talk with your family. Make one positive change this week. Just make one positive change based on something that you've heard. Make one positive change. Share this episode with someone who you know needs the help. They need that empowerment. They need that little kick in the rear to say, hey, look, let's watch this together, right? If you want a copy of the book, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, or if you want an autographed copy or a direct copy from me, that's no problem at all. Go to www.daretolivewell.com. That's the number 2, daretolivewell.com. And you should be able to not just order a book, but also if you'd want to, let's say, talk with me or book me for a health talk or anything like that, you want to host a generational health symposium, you want me to bring Karanja, that's no problem at all.
We coming through.
Right? Get on the website, daretolivewell.com. We're coming through to your city, right? And then other than that, that's it. Is there a way that people can, if people want a job, since you got all this money just floating around you, and you're in a corporate office, if somebody wants to, if somebody's like, hey, I want to work in healthcare and I want this to be my boss because he's going to add value, to my life, how can is it on LinkedIn?
Yeah, you can find me on all major social media platforms except for Twitter. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. You can find me. So reach out to me if you want further information. We want you to dare to live well. There's a lot of people out there. You'll say, I'll die for my family. I'll die for my kids. And what we're asking you to do is live for them.
That's it. Listen, thank you so much for watching the Dare Champion podcast. I see you on your next episode. God bless.